Welcome to Postcard English Stories, where emotions speak louder than words. Today's story: my best friend married the man I secretly loved for years. I didn't show up to the wedding. I just sent them a gift. And when they opened it, the entire reception went completely silent. What was inside that box? Stay with me, this isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's about truth, silence, and finally choosing yourself. Used to believe in fate. That if you loved someone deeply enough, silently enough, and purely enough, the universe would somehow make it right. That one day the stars would align and he'd look at me, really look, and realize I had been there all along. But fate, I've learned, doesn't reward the quiet ones. It rewards the bold, the loud, the ones who take what they want no matter who they hurt. Her name is Claire. She was my best friend since middle school. The kind of friend who steals fries off your plate without asking, who cries with you at 2 a.m. over a breakup, who knows your deepest secrets, including the name of the man you've loved for over 5 years. His name is Daniel. We met in college. He was warm in a quiet way, thoughtful kind, the kind of person who listens not just with his ears, but with his eyes. We were never official, never kissed. But you don't need a label to love someone. You just know. The long talks, the glances that linger, the late night messages, the way he remembered how I take my coffee. I thought he felt it too. I thought we were just waiting for the right moment. That moment never came, because one day Claire told me she was seeing someone. She was glowing, that blush people get when they're falling for someone. I was happy for her. Until she said his name, Daniel. I don't remember what I said. I think I smiled, numb. She didn't ask me if it was okay. She didn't say, "I know you like him." She acted like she had no idea. But Claire knew. She always knew. I went home that night and cried harder than I ever had before. Not just because I had lost Daniel, but because I realized I had lost her too. Weeks passed. They became them. A couple. And I faded into the background. The invitations came months later. A wedding, white gold lettering. "We can't wait to celebrate with you." A handwritten note. "Hope you'll be there. It wouldn't be the same without you." I didn't RSVP. I didn't answer her calls. And when she stopped calling, I thought that would be the end. But something inside me wouldn't let go. Not of the pain, not of the betrayal, and definitely not of the truth. So I made a decision. I wouldn't go to the wedding, but I would send a gift, something unforgettable. I remember packing it. My hands shook. Not because I was angry I wasn't anymore. I had gone through rage, tears, silence. Now I was simply resolved. The gift looked ordinary. A white box, a gold ribbon. But inside was everything they had tried to bury. Photos, messages, a journal entry. One from the night Claire asked me if I still had feelings for Daniel. One where I said, "Yes, I always have." And her reply, "Don't worry, I'd never go there, I promise." I included a letter too. Short, clear. This is not to ruin your day. This is to remind you that every choice has a cost. Congratulations and goodbye. People say weddings are remembered for the flowers, the vows, the dancing. But this one was remembered for the silence. That's what Claire texted me later. "Why would you do this to me?" She didn't ask what I did. She already knew. And honestly, I didn't reply. Because the real question was, why did she do it to me? Claire's wedding was held in a vineyard just outside the city. Elegant, classy, everything she had ever dreamed of. I wasn't there, of course. But I imagined the string lights, the soft jazz, the sound of glasses clinking, the laughter, the white dress, the promises. I also imagined the moment they opened my gift. I had timed it carefully. The courier would deliver it right after the ceremony during the reception. When the formalities were over, when people were more relaxed, maybe a little drunk, passing gifts around and reading cards out loud. I heard about what happened from someone who was there, someone who knew me, someone who texted me later that night, "What the hell was in that box?" Apparently, Claire was smiling when she unwrapped it. She thought it was a luxury set, maybe something sentimental from our childhood. She had no idea. Inside there were 3 things. First, a printed screenshot of a message she had sent me 2 years ago. The one where she promised never to go near Daniel. The handwriting was still unmistakably hers, bubbly, confident. She had written that after a night out when she saw how Daniel and I talked. Back then, she teased me about him, encouraged me to tell him, but now that message was a ghost, a broken promise sealed in ink. Second, a small journal, my journal. I tore the pages out by hand and tied them with twine. Entries that dated back 5 years, scattered, raw, messy. Some were about Daniel, how his voice calmed my storms, how he walked me home in the rain once and said, "You deserve better," how I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, he meant me. And third, the letter. I had rewritten it 10 times. I didn't want to be cruel. I wasn't trying to ruin their day. I wanted the truth to sit in the room with them just once. The letter said, "This isn't a confession. It's a farewell. You both knew how I felt. You chose silence. You chose each other. I am choosing myself. May this be the only shadow that crosses your sunlight." When Claire read it, she froze. The people around her friend's family, even the wedding planner, stopped talking. The music played on like a cruel joke in the background. But the room had changed. The air was heavier. Daniel took the box from her hands. He didn't say anything for a long time. He just stood there, flipping through the pages, looking at the message. My name was on almost every page. And then he walked away. Just walked. Out the side door. Claire followed him a minute later. Guests murmured. Some tried to laugh it off. Others started leaving. The toasts were skipped. The first dance never happened. And me, I was at home sitting by the window sipping tea that had long gone cold. I didn't smile, but I didn't cry either. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't justice. It was closure. A week later, Claire sent me a voice message. She didn't apologize. She didn't even sound angry. She sounded hollow. Was it worth it, she asked. Was breaking the moment worth it? And I wanted to tell her the moment was already broken. You just didn't see the cracks. But I didn't respond, because silence sometimes is the most powerful thing you can say. People think the silence ends when the moment passes, when the party's over, when the music dies down. But for me, the silence began after the wedding. The noise of betrayal had already happened like thunder before the rain. What came after was the weight of everything unspoken. 2 weeks after the wedding, my apartment was still full of boxes I hadn't unpacked. I had moved to a new place the week before their ceremony, small, quiet, just far enough to feel like I could breathe again. I had blocked Claire. I muted Daniel's socials. It wasn't out of spite, it was survival. Then one morning I checked my mailbox. Among the usual bills and leaflets was a small envelope. Handwritten, no return address. I almost tossed it until I noticed the handwriting. It wasn't Claire's. It was softer, rounder. It was from her mother. I hesitated before opening it. She had always been kind to me, like a second mom during our school years. When I finally unfolded the letter, I didn't expect what I saw. It read, "I don't know exactly what happened between you three, but I saw Claire cry in a way I've never seen her cry before. Not out of guilt, not out of shame, out of loss. She lost something the day you sent that gift, and maybe it wasn't Daniel. I just wanted to say, I see you, and I'm sorry." I read the letter 3 times. Not because it hurt, but because it held something I hadn't felt in a long time. Validation. That someone saw me, not the dramatic one, not the bitter ex-friend, just someone who had been quietly hurt. 2 days later, I received something else. A small package, no note. Inside was a book. One Daniel had once lent me during college, a rare edition of Neruda's poems. Pressed between 2 pages was a photograph. It was of me and Daniel sitting on a bench laughing. Claire had taken it. I remember that day. Autumn leaves, warm light. I looked so free in that photo. So sure. On the back, scribbled in pencil, were just 4 words I should have known. I didn't know if he meant the love, or the loss, or the way Claire and I had cracked somewhere no one could see. But it didn't matter, because for the first time I didn't feel like I was standing in the shadows anymore. They had seen the truth, and the truth had finally spoken. It didn't fix anything. Claire didn't call. Daniel never showed up. There was no grand apology, no cinematic ending. But there was peace. Not loud, just soft enough to settle into my chest like breath after drowning. Time passed as it always does. Quietly, then suddenly. The sting faded, the questions softened. And in the silence that followed, I found something unexpected: stillness. There were no more messages from Daniel. No dramatic return, no confessions. He faded into the category of almost something, almost mine. I started writing again, not in journals filled with heartbreak, but in small paragraphs about the present. The scent of morning coffee, the way rain sounds on my windowsill, the softness of starting over. And then nearly a year after the wedding, Claire's name lit up on my phone. An email, no subject line, no attachments, just a few lines. "I've started therapy. I think I understand now what I did, what I broke. Not just with you, but within myself. I hope you're doing better. I hope you're happy." You don't have to reply, but I needed to say it. Thank you for loving him the way you did. It showed me what real love looks like. And I'm sorry I didn't know how to honor that. I didn't cry when I read it, not because it didn't hurt, but because it didn't need to anymore. Sometimes closure doesn't come with a final conversation. Sometimes it comes in the shape of your own breath, steady, unshaken. In the mornings, you wake up and don't think about them first. In the laughter that feels real again. I didn't write back, not out of anger, but because there was nothing left to say. My silence wasn't empty, it was full. Full of every version of me that had waited, that had hoped, that had quietly loved, and finally learned how to let go. They're still together, last I heard, and I wish them peace. Not happiness, not forever, just peace. because anything built on silence and betrayal, it needs all the peace it can find. As for me, I don't look back anymore, only forward, not to a person, but to a feeling. The feeling of coming home to myself.